Police sirens wailing outside my apartment at 3 in the morning, flashlights blazing through my windows, pounding on my door. Police search warrant. My heart hammering as they storm inside, finding the plastic bag of cocaine hidden under my passenger seat. Cocaine I'd never seen before in my life. My brother Ryan standing in the crowd of neighbors, shaking his head with perfectly rehearsed disappointment. "I can't believe you'd do this, Dirk." But his eyes weren't shocked. They were calculating. That's when I knew. The steel handcuffs bit into my wrists as they pushed my head down, guiding me into the back of the patrol car. My mind raced, trying to process what had just happened. Cocaine under my car seat. I'd never touched drugs in my life, barely even drank alcohol, except for the occasional beer after work at the auto repair shop. The booking process felt like a nightmare. Fingerprints, mugshots, the humiliation of being searched and processed like a common criminal. They read me my rights, but the words sounded distant and hollow. All I could think about was that bag of white powder and how it had gotten there. "Phone call," the desk sergeant grunted, pointing to the payphone bolted to the wall. I called my parents first. Dad answered on the third ring, his voice groggy with sleep. "Dirk, do you know what time it is?" "Dad, I'm in jail. They're saying I had drugs in my car, but I swear to God I've never seen them before in my life. I need help." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had been disconnected. "We'll be right there," he finally said, but his tone had shifted from concern to something colder. 20 minutes later, my parents, Harold and Susan, rushed into the police station, still in their pajamas and robes. Behind them walked Ryan, my older brother by 3 years, impeccably dressed, despite the early hour. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his expensive suit wrinkle-free. Even at 3:30 in the morning, he looked like he'd stepped out of a legal magazine. "What happened?" Mom asked, her eyes red with tears. "They found cocaine in my car, but Mom, I swear on Grandma's grave, I have no idea how it got there. Someone planted it. They had to have planted it." Ryan stepped forward, his expression a masterpiece of concerned disappointment. "Dirk, addiction is a disease. Nobody's judging you here. The first step is admitting you have a problem." "I don't have a problem," I exploded. "I don't use drugs. Someone set me up." My parents exchanged that look. The same look they'd given each other throughout our childhood whenever I got in trouble, and Ryan managed to stay clean. The look that said they'd expected this from me. "Son," Dad said slowly, "the evidence speaks for itself. They found drugs in your possession." "In my car, not in my possession. There's a difference." Ryan placed a gentle hand on Mom's shoulder, the perfect concerned brother. "I tried to talk to him about this a few months ago. I noticed some changes in his behavior, but I hoped I was wrong." "What changes?" I stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" "The missed family dinners, the paranoid phone calls, the way you've been avoiding eye contact lately." Each lie rolled off his tongue with practiced ease. I felt the walls closing in. These were my parents, my family. They should have believed me, should have known me better than this. But I could see doubt creeping into their eyes with every word Ryan spoke. The desk sergeant called us over. "Arraignment's set for Monday morning. Bail's been set at $50,000. Dad's face went pale. "50,000? That's a 10% down payment to a bail bondsman," Ryan explained smoothly. $5,000. My parents looked at each other again, having one of those silent conversations married couples perfected over 32 years of marriage. "We'll pay it," Mom said finally. "But Dirk, you need to understand something. Your brother has worked incredibly hard to build his reputation at the law firm. He's up for partner next year. We can't let your problems destroy everything he's accomplished." My problems. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I'm being framed." "Keep your voice down," Dad hissed, glancing around the police station. "People are staring." Ryan leaned in close, speaking just loud enough for our parents to hear. "I'll do everything I can to help you through this, brother. but you need to take responsibility for your actions. Denial isn't going to help anyone. As we waited for the paperwork to process my release, Ryan's girlfriend Emma arrived. She was a tall brunette with kind eyes and a soft smile, the type of woman who volunteered at animal shelters and baked cookies for church fundraisers. She immediately wrapped my mother in a comforting hug. "I'm so sorry you're going through this, Mrs. Patterson," Emma said softly. Ryan told me what happened. If there's anything I can do to help. Even Emma believed I was guilty. The woman who'd known me for 2 years, who'd laughed at my jokes during family barbecues and complimented my mechanic skills when her car broke down, looked at me now with pity and disappointment. When the paperwork was finally completed, and I was released into my parents' custody, we walked to the parking lot in uncomfortable silence. The morning sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed mockingly beautiful given the circumstances. "We need to talk about getting you help," Dad said as we reached their car. "Rehab programs, counseling, whatever it takes." "I don't need help. I need you to believe me." Ryan pulled me aside as our parents got in the car. For just a moment, his mask of concern slipped, and I saw something cold and calculating in his eyes. "You always were the expendable one, brother," he said quietly, making sure our parents couldn't hear. "Thanks for taking one for the team." My blood ran cold. "What did you say?" But the mask was back in place, and Ryan's voice returned to its normal concerned tone as our parents rolled down the window. "I said we'll figure this out together, Dirk. Family sticks together, right?" That's when I knew for certain. My own brother had framed me for drug dealing. The bail money came through by noon, and I walked out of county lockup feeling like I'd aged 10 years in 12 hours. My parents drove me home in silence, their disappointment filling the car like toxic gas. When we pulled up to my apartment complex, Dad handed me a business card. "Ryan recommended this lawyer, Michael Thompson. He's supposed to be good with these kinds of cases." I looked at the embossed card with its gold lettering and expensive paper. "I can't afford a lawyer like this." "Ryan's paying for it," Mom said without looking at me. "He wants to help despite everything." After they left, I sat in my empty apartment staring at the lawyer's card. Something felt wrong about the whole situation, but I couldn't put my finger on what. I called the number and set up an appointment for the next day. Michael Thompson's office was located in a gleaming downtown high-rise, all-marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows. The man himself was about 50, with silver hair and an expensive suit that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. He had the kind of confidence that came from winning cases and charging enormous fees. "Your brother speaks very highly of you," Thompson said as we shook hands. "He's quite concerned about your situation." We sat in leather chairs that cost more than my car, and Thompson spread my file across his mahogany desk. "Let's be frank, Dirk. The evidence against you is substantial. Cocaine found in your vehicle, your fingerprints on the packaging. The prosecution has a strong case." "My fingerprints? How is that possible?" Thompson consulted his notes. "According to the police report, the drugs were found in a clear plastic bag. Your prints were on the bag itself." My mind raced. When could I have touched that bag? I'd never seen it before in my life. Then it hit me. 2 weeks ago, I'd borrowed Ryan's car when mine was in the shop getting new brakes. He'd asked me to clean out the glove compartment and throw away some trash. I'd handled several plastic bags that day, assuming they contained old receipts or fast food wrappers. "I think my brother set me up," I told Thompson. The lawyer's expression didn't change. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have any evidence to support that claim?" "The fingerprints. I borrowed his car a couple weeks ago. He could have saved one of the bags I touched." Thompson made a note on his legal pad. "Even if that's true, it would be difficult to prove. Your brother is a respected attorney with no criminal record. You, on the other hand, have a history of minor infractions." "Minor infractions? I got a speeding ticket 3 years ago and a parking ticket last month. That hardly makes me a drug dealer. The prosecution will paint a picture of escalating behavior. They'll argue that you've moved from minor violations to serious crimes. Over the following days, my life fell apart piece by piece. My boss at Precision Auto Repair called me into his office the morning after my arrest made the local news. "I'm sorry, Dirk," he said, avoiding eye contact. "I can't have someone facing drug charges working on customers' cars. It's a liability issue. But I'm innocent until proven guilty. Not in the court of public opinion. I've already had 3 customers ask if you're the mechanic who works on their cars." I cleaned out my locker and turned in my uniform, 15 years of hard work and a spotless employment record meaning nothing in the face of false accusations. My girlfriend Sarah broke up with me over dinner at a restaurant where we'd had our first date 3 years earlier. She was a nurse at the county hospital, a woman who'd seen the damage drugs could do to families and communities. "I can't be with someone who uses cocaine," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've seen too many relationships destroyed by addiction. I don't use cocaine. How can you not believe me? The police don't arrest people for no reason, Dirk, and your own brother seems to think you have a problem." "My brother is lying." She stood up from the table, leaving her salad untouched. This is exactly the kind of paranoid thinking that addicts display. Everyone's out to get them, everyone's lying except them. I watched her walk away, taking 3 years of shared memories and future plans with her. Even my friends began to distance themselves. Guys I'd known since high school stopped returning my phone calls. The poker game I'd attended every Friday night for 5 years suddenly became invitation only, and my invitation never arrived. Meanwhile, Ryan played his role perfectly. He visited my apartment twice that first week, each time bringing food and expressing concern for my well-being. During his second visit, he suggested I get tested for drugs to prove my sobriety. "It would help your case," he said, unpacking Chinese takeout containers. "Show the court you're serious about getting clean." "I am clean. I've always been clean." "Then the test will prove that, right?" But something in his tone made me suspicious. After he left, I checked the containers of Chinese food and found a small residue of white powder at the bottom of one container. My brother was trying to drug me to make me fail the test. That night I started following him. Using my old pickup truck with tinted windows, I tailed Ryan from his downtown law office to an upscale neighborhood about 20 minutes away. He parked in front of a modern house with perfectly manicured landscaping and walked to the front door like he belonged there. A man answered the door. Even from a distance, I could see the exchange. Ryan handed over an envelope, the man handed him a small package. The entire transaction took less than 30 seconds. My brother wasn't just framing me for drug dealing, he was actually dealing drugs himself. I spent the next 2 weeks learning to become an amateur private investigator, watching countless YouTube videos about surveillance techniques, and buying a cheap digital camera with a telephoto lens from a pawn shop. My unemployment gave me plenty of time to follow Ryan, and what I discovered made my stomach turn. My successful lawyer brother had built an entire second life around drug dealing. He had a network of clients that included other lawyers, doctors, and business executives, all respectable professionals who wanted high-quality cocaine delivered discreetly to their upscale neighborhoods. The man I'd seen him meeting was Marcus Webb, a mid-level dealer who operated out of the east side of town. Through careful observation and some creative Google searches using license plate numbers, I learned that Marcus supplied several dealers across the city. But Ryan was different from Marcus's other customers. Ryan bought in much larger quantities and seemed to have his own customer base. I started keeping detailed notes in a composition notebook, documenting times, dates, locations, and descriptions of everyone involved. Every drug transaction Ryan made, every client he served, every lie he told our parents about working late at the office when he was actually making deliveries. The most sickening discovery came when I followed Ryan to his law firm late one evening. Using the building's fire escape and my knowledge of basic lockpicking learned from automotive work, I managed to get inside the office building after hours. Ryan's law firm, Patterson, Bradley and Associates, occupied the entire 15th floor. I made my way to Ryan's office, a corner space with windows overlooking the city, and enough square footage to house a small family. His computer was password protected, but his filing cabinets weren't locked. Inside, I found evidence that made my head spin. Bank statements showing regular deposits that didn't match his salary. Client files that had been altered to hide missing money. Most damning of all, a handwritten ledger that detailed his entire drug operation, including customer names, quantities sold, and profits earned. Ryan had been embezzling money from client trust funds to purchase drugs for resale. The cocaine operation wasn't just a side business. It was how he was covering up his theft from the law firm. My brother was stealing from clients dealing drugs to cover his tracks, and using me as a scapegoat to protect his carefully constructed life. I photographed everything with my cheap digital camera, my hands shaking as I realized the scope of his betrayal. But just as I was finishing with the ledger, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Ryan's voice carried through the office door as he spoke to someone on his cell phone. "I'll be working late again tonight. Important case preparation. Don't wait up for me." I scrambled to put everything back exactly as I'd found it, then slipped out through the emergency stairwell just as Ryan's key turned in the office door. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst as I made my way down 15 flights of stairs and out into the night. The next morning I tried to process what I'd learned. Ryan wasn't just dealing drugs. He was running a sophisticated criminal enterprise while maintaining his reputation as an upstanding attorney. And somehow he'd managed to frame me for his crimes while positioning himself as the concerned brother trying to help. I decided to approach Bradley Patterson, Ryan's law partner and the firm's founding partner. If anyone would be interested in learning about Ryan's criminal activities, it would be the man whose name was on the letterhead and whose reputation was at stake. I called Bradley's office and scheduled an appointment under a false name, claiming I needed legal advice about a business matter. When I arrived at the law firm the next day, Bradley's secretary led me into a conference room with windows overlooking the city. Bradley Patterson was a man in his 60s with white hair and kind eyes. He had the bearing of someone who'd spent decades building a successful practice through hard work and ethical behavior. "What can I do for you, Mr. Johnson?" he asked, using the false name I'd given his secretary. "Actually, my real name is Dirk Patterson. I'm Ryan's brother." Bradley's expression shifted immediately. "I see. Are you here about your legal troubles? Because I should tell you up front that would create a conflict of interest for our firm." "No, sir. I'm here because I think Ryan is stealing from your clients." I spread the photographs I'd taken across the conference table, explaining what I'd discovered about Ryan's drug dealing operation and his embezzlement of client funds. Bradley examined each image carefully, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "These bank statements," he said finally, "they show deposits that don't match his salary or any bonuses we've paid. The handwritten ledger shows how much cocaine he's buying and selling each week. The altered client files show where the money's coming from." Bradley was quiet for a long moment, studying the evidence. Then he looked up at me with troubled eyes. "Why are you bringing this to me? Your brother could go to prison for this." "Because he framed me for drug dealing to cover his own crimes. My parents think I'm a drug addict. I've lost my job and my girlfriend, and I'm facing prison time for something I didn't do. Ryan destroyed my life to protect his own." Bradley nodded slowly. "What do you want me to do with this information?" "Help me prove my innocence. If you confront Ryan about the embezzlement, maybe we can get him to admit what he's done." But as I was explaining my plan, Bradley's phone buzzed with an incoming text message. He glanced at it, and his expression changed completely. "I'm sorry, Mr. Patterson, but I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "What, why?" "I just received a message from Ryan. He's on his way up to discuss some urgent client matters. I think it would be best if you weren't here when he arrives." I gathered up my photographs and prepared to leave, but something felt wrong. Bradley's entire demeanor had shifted the moment he'd received that text message. As I waited for the elevator, I heard Bradley's office door open and close. Then I heard voices. Bradley and Ryan talking in hushed tones. I pressed my ear to the elevator doors, trying to make out their conversation. He had photographs, Bradley was saying. Bank statements, client files, everything. Don't worry about it, Ryan replied. I'll handle my little brother. My blood ran cold as I realized the truth. Bradley wasn't an innocent victim of Ryan's crimes. He was Ryan's partner in the embezzlement scheme. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor, and I rushed out into the lobby with my heart racing. Not only was Ryan dealing drugs and embezzling money, but he had corrupted his law partner as well. The entire law firm was involved in criminal activities, and I was the convenient scapegoat for all of it. I drove home in a daze trying to process the magnitude of the conspiracy I'd uncovered. But when I pulled into my apartment complex parking lot, I noticed a familiar car parked near my building. Sarah's blue Honda Civic, the one I'd helped her pick out when we were still together. She was sitting on the steps leading to my apartment, still wearing her hospital scrubs from her shift. When she saw me approaching, she stood up and smoothed down her uniform nervously. "Dirk, we need to talk," she said. "I thought you made your feelings pretty clear at the restaurant." "I know, and I'm sorry about that. I've been thinking about everything that's happened, and I realize I might have been too hasty in judging you." She looked genuinely remorseful, her brown eyes soft with what appeared to be regret. Despite everything that had happened, seeing her again stirred up feelings I'd been trying to suppress. "Come inside," I said, unlocking my apartment door. We sat on my couch, the same couch where we'd watched movies and planned our future together just a few weeks earlier. Sarah reached over and took my hand, her touch warm and familiar. "I've been talking to some of the doctors at the hospital about addiction," she said. "They told me that sometimes good people get caught up in bad situations, that addiction is a disease, not a moral failing." "Sarah, I'm not addicted to anything. I've never used drugs in my life." "I know that's what you believe, but denial is a common symptom. The important thing is that I want to help you get better." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small digital recorder. "I found this in my car yesterday. I think it belongs to you." I stared at the device, confused. "I've never seen that before." "Really? Because according to Ryan, you've been recording our private conversations. He says it's part of the paranoid behavior that comes with cocaine addiction." "Ryan told you that..." "He called me yesterday. He's worried about you, Dirk. He thinks you might be getting desperate enough to do something dangerous." I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. "When did you talk to Ryan?" "He's been keeping me updated on your situation. He knows how much I care about you, and he thought I should know about your condition." "My condition?" Sarah's expression grew concerned. "The hallucinations, Dirk. The paranoid delusions about people trying to frame you. Ryan says you've been accusing him of planting drugs in your car. Because he did plant drugs in my car." She squeezed my hand tighter. "This is exactly what he was talking about. You're so convinced that everyone is out to get you that you can't see the truth." I pulled my hand away from hers. "What truth?" "That you need help. That the people who love you are trying to save your life before it's too late." Sarah reached into her purse again and pulled out a small plastic bag containing white powder. My heart stopped. "Where did you get that?" "I found it in your bathroom cabinet when I came to get my things last week. I was going to throw it away, but Ryan thought it might be useful as evidence for your treatment program." "You went through my apartment." "I still had my key. Remember, I was hoping to find some sign that you were getting help. But instead, I found this." I stared at the bag of cocaine, knowing with absolute certainty that I'd never seen it before. "Sarah, someone planted that in my apartment." "Who would do such a thing?" "Sorry, Ryan, don't you see what's happening? He's been manipulating both of us." But even as I said the words, I could see doubt creeping into Sarah's eyes. From her perspective, I was a cocaine addict who'd been caught with drugs in his car and his apartment making wild accusations about his own brother. "I think you should take a drug test right now," she said gently. "If you're clean like you claim, it will prove your innocence." "I'm not taking any test that Ryan suggested. He tried to drug me with Chinese food last week." Sarah's face fell. "Dirk, listen to yourself. You're accusing your brother of an elaborate conspiracy to frame you for drug dealing. Doesn't that sound a little far-fetched?" Not when you know what I know about his business activities. What business activities? I told her everything I'd discovered about Ryan's drug dealing operation and his embezzlement scheme. But with each detail, I revealed Sarah looked more worried rather than convinced. You've been following your brother around town taking pictures, Dirk, that's stalking behavior. I was gathering evidence. Evidence of what, that your brother meets with clients and works late at his office? I realized how my investigation must have sounded to someone who hadn't seen what I'd seen. Without the proper context, my actions did appear paranoid and erratic. I have photographs. I said reaching for the manila envelope where I'd stored the evidence. But the envelope was empty. All of my carefully documented proof of Ryan's criminal activities had disappeared. They were right here, I said, frantically searching through my apartment. Bank statements, client files, a handwritten ledger. Sarah watched me tear through my belongings, her expression growing more concerned by the minute. Dirk, there's nothing here. Someone took them. Ryan must have broken in and stolen the evidence. Or maybe there never was any evidence to begin with. I stopped searching and looked at her. You think I made it all up? I think you're a good man who's struggling with addiction and paranoid delusions. I think you need professional help, and I think the people who love you are trying to provide that help. She stood up from the couch and headed toward the door. Where are you going? I'm going to call Ryan and tell him about our conversation. He needs to know that your condition is getting worse. Don't call him Sarah, please. Just give me a chance to prove what I'm saying. But she was already dialing her phone as she walked out of my apartment. Through the thin walls, I could hear her speaking in hushed tones. Ryan, it's Sarah. I think we need to move up the timeline for Dirk's intervention. He's getting worse. I slumped onto my couch, overwhelmed by the realization that my ex-girlfriend was working with my brother against me. Whether she was a willing participant or an unwitting pawn didn't matter. The result was the same. I was completely alone with no allies and no credible evidence to support my claims. But something Sarah had said stuck with me. She'd mentioned that Ryan had been keeping her updated on my situation. How long had they been in contact? And why was Ryan so concerned about my ex-girlfriend's opinion when he was supposedly focused on helping me? I grabbed my laptop and logged into Facebook, something I rarely did anymore. Sarah's profile showed recent activity that made my heart sink. Photos of her at dinner with Ryan and Emma. Comments on Ryan's posts about family loyalty and supporting loved ones through difficult times. Even a shared article about the signs of cocaine addiction. But the most damaging discovery came when I scrolled through Sarah's timeline from several months earlier. There, posted 6 months before my arrest, was a photo of Sarah and Ryan at a coffee shop, smiling together like old friends. The timestamp on the photo was from a day when Sarah had told me she was working a double shift at the hospital. The day Ryan had asked to borrow my car because his was in the shop. My ex-girlfriend and my brother had been secretly meeting for months before I was arrested for drug dealing. Sarah hadn't just been keeping in touch with Ryan since my arrest. They'd been planning this betrayal together long before it happened. 3 days after discovering the photos of Sarah and Ryan together, I received a phone call that would change everything. Dirk, it's Marcus. I recognized the voice immediately. Marcus Webb, the drug dealer I'd seen Ryan meeting with during my surveillance. How did you get this number? Your brother gave it to me. We need to talk. I'm not interested in whatever Ryan told you to offer me. That's the thing, man. Your brother's been lying about who he really is. I just found out he's a lawyer, not a client. He's been playing me for months. My pulse quickened. What do you mean? Meet me at Riverside Park in 1 hour. Come alone. I'll explain everything. Against my better judgment, I drove to Riverside Park, a sprawling green space on the outskirts of town, where families brought their children to play, and joggers followed winding trails along the river. Marcus was waiting by the duck pond, a lean black man in his 30s wearing jeans and a baseball cap. You look just like your brother, he said as I approached. What did you want to tell me? Marcus lit a cigarette and took a long drag. Your brother told me his name was Robert Williams, said he was a business consultant who needed party supplies for client entertainment. I've been selling to him for 8 months. Party supplies. Cocaine. High-grade stuff for professional types who want to impress clients or blow off steam after big deals. And you just found out he's a lawyer. I saw his picture in the newspaper yesterday. Article about some big case his law firm won. That's when I realized Robert Williams doesn't exist. Marcus flicked his cigarette into the pond, disturbing a family of ducks who swam away in agitation. But here's the thing that really pisses me off, he continued. I've been hearing rumors that someone's been selling my product to my other customers, undercutting my prices, stealing my business. You think it's Ryan? I know it's Ryan. He's been buying from me in bulk, then redistributing to create his own customer base. The man's running a side hustle using my connections and my reputation. This confirmed what I'd suspected based on my surveillance, but hearing it from Marcus himself gave me an idea. What if I told you there was a way to catch him in the act? Marcus studied me carefully. What kind of way? A sting operation. You set up a meeting with him, I document the transaction, and we both get what we want. You expose him as a fraud, and I get evidence that he's the real drug dealer. What's in it for you? Why do you care about exposing your own brother? I told Marcus about being framed for drug dealing, about losing my job and my girlfriend, about my family choosing to believe Ryan over me. With each detail, I revealed Marcus's expression grew angrier. That's messed up, man. Family shouldn't do family like that. Will you help me? Marcus nodded. Hell yes, I'll help you. Your brother played me for a fool, and nobody plays Marcus Webb. We spent the next hour planning our sting operation. Marcus would call Ryan and arrange a larger-than-usual purchase, claiming he had a big client who needed party supplies for a corporate event. I would hide nearby with my camera and document the entire transaction. Where should we set it up? I asked. There's a parking garage downtown 3rd level. Lots of concrete pillars to hide behind, and the acoustics will be good for recording audio. We agreed to meet the following evening at 7 o'clock. Marcus would park on the east side of the garage. I would position myself behind the concrete pillars on the west side with my camera and a digital voice recorder I'd borrowed from the public library. But as I drove home from our meeting, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the entire situation. Marcus had seemed almost too eager to help, and his explanation for contacting me felt convenient. How had he gotten my phone number? Why was he so angry about Ryan's deception when drug dealers usually expected their customers to use false identities? I decided to take additional precautions. Instead of relying solely on Marcus's plan, I would contact the police and see if I could get someone official involved in documenting Ryan's crimes. Detective Sarah Walsh had been assigned to my drug case, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who'd treated me professionally during my arrest and processing. She'd seemed skeptical about the evidence against me, asking pointed questions about how the drugs had ended up in my car. I called the police station and asked to speak with her. Detective Walsh, this is Dirk Patterson. You arrested me for cocaine possession 3 weeks ago. I remember you, Mr. Patterson. What can I do for you? I have reason to believe my brother framed me for drug dealing. I've discovered evidence that he's actually dealing drugs himself, and I think I can prove it. There was a long pause. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Patterson. Do you have evidence to support your claims? I'm working on gathering that evidence. Tomorrow night I'm planning to document a drug transaction between my brother and his dealer. If you could have an officer nearby to witness it. I can't authorize surveillance based solely on your accusations against a family member. You'd need to provide substantial evidence first. What kind of evidence? Financial records witness testimony, physical evidence of drug transactions. Something more concrete than suspicions and family disputes. I hung up feeling frustrated, but not surprised. Detective Walsh was just doing her job, and from her perspective, I looked like a drug dealer trying to blame his brother for his own crimes. That left me with Marcus and our sting operation. Whatever his motivations for helping me, he was my best chance of getting evidence against Ryan. The next evening, I arrived at the downtown parking garage 30 minutes early and positioned myself behind a concrete pillar with a clear view of the east side where Marcus planned to park. My hands shook as I tested my camera and voice recorder, knowing that the next hour would either vindicate me or destroy what little credibility I had left. At exactly 7 o'clock, Marcus pulled up in a silver sedan and parked under one of the few working fluorescent lights. 5 minutes later, Ryan arrived in his black BMW, looking around nervously before getting out of his car. I started recording as they approached each other. "You have the money?" Marcus asked. "20,000, just like we discussed," Ryan replied, handing over a thick envelope. "And you understand this is a one-time deal. After tonight, we're done doing business." Ryan nodded. "That's fine. I have other suppliers lined up." Marcus handed Ryan a large gym bag. "Pure Colombian, enough to keep your clients happy for months." I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. My brother was purchasing $20,000 worth of cocaine, enough to distribute to dozens of customers. This wasn't small-time dealing. This was a major drug transaction. But just as I was congratulating myself on finally getting the evidence I needed, Ryan looked directly at my hiding spot behind the concrete pillar. "You can come out now, Dirk. I know you're there." My blood turned to ice. How could he possibly have known? Marcus turned in my direction and smiled. "Your brother's smarter than you give him credit for." I stepped out from behind the pillar, my camera and voice recorder still running. "You set me up." "Actually," Ryan said, "you set yourself up. Did you really think Marcus would call you out of the blue and offer to help expose me? I've been paying him to feed you false information for weeks." "The drug transaction?" "Fake. The bag contains baking soda and the money is photocopied bills with real 20s on the top and bottom." Marcus laughed. "Your brother thought you might try something like this. He wanted to give you enough rope to hang yourself with." "But why?" Ryan's expression turned serious. "Because you've been investigating my business activities, and that makes you a liability. After tonight, when you've been caught orchestrating what appears to be a drug sting operation against your own brother, your credibility will be completely destroyed." "Who's going to believe I was orchestrating anything?" "Detective Walsh, when she reviews the security footage from this parking garage, the footage that shows you meeting with Marcus yesterday to plan tonight's operation. The same Detective Walsh who will testify that you called her with wild accusations about your brother dealing drugs." I felt sick to my stomach. This was all planned. Every detail. The fake drug by your desperate attempt to frame me, your inevitable arrest when the police arrive in about 3 minutes. "What police?" Ryan pulled out his cell phone and showed me the recent call log. "The anonymous tip I placed 20 minutes ago about suspicious drug activity in this parking garage. Sure enough, I could hear sirens approaching in the distance. You'll be arrested for conspiracy to distribute narcotics, filing false police reports, and harassment of a family member. Combined with your existing drug charges, you're looking at serious prison time." Marcus started walking back toward his car. "Pleasure doing business with you, Ryan. Let me know if you need anything else." The sirens were getting closer. I had maybe 60 seconds before the police arrived and found me in a parking garage with a man who'd just sold fake drugs to my brother with my own recording equipment documenting what would appear to be my involvement in planning the entire operation. "Why," I asked Ryan, "why destroy your own brother?" "Because you were always going to be a problem, Dirk. You ask too many questions, you don't know when to quit, and you've never understood your place in this family." "My place? As the expendable one. The one who takes the blame when things go wrong so the important people can continue their important work." The police cars were entering the parking garage, their spotlights cutting through the darkness. In moments, they would find me holding recording equipment in what appeared to be a drug deal gone wrong. But then I smiled. "What's so funny?" Ryan demanded. "You made one mistake, brother." "What mistake?" I held up my digital voice recorder, its red light still blinking to indicate active recording. "You just confessed to framing me for drug dealing, and this entire conversation is being broadcast live." Ryan's face went pale. "What do you mean, broadcast live?" "I mean, I'm not the amateur investigator you think I am. This recorder is connected to a live streaming app on my phone. Everything you just said has been transmitted in real time to a very interested audience." The police cars screeched to a halt around us, their flashing lights painting the concrete garage in alternating red and blue. Officers jumped out with their weapons drawn, shouting for everyone to get on the ground. But I stayed standing, my hands raised, my recorder still transmitting every word. FBI agent Patricia Hayes. I called out loudly. I'm Dirk Patterson, your confidential informant. The target just confessed to the frame-up as planned. The parking garage erupted in controlled chaos as FBI agents emerged from behind concrete pillars and unmarked vans, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Ryan's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and growing panic as the reality of the situation became clear. Dirk Patterson, FBI informant, 477. I announced clearly, making sure my voice recorder captured every word. Target has just confessed to conspiracy fraud and framing an innocent person for drug-related crimes. Agent Patricia Hayes stepped forward, a stern woman in her 50s, wearing a bulletproof vest with FBI stenciled across the front. She'd been my contact for the past 10 days, ever since I'd stumbled across information that had caught the Bureau's attention. Ryan Patterson. She said, approaching my brother with handcuffs ready, "You're under arrest for embezzlement of client funds, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Ryan stared at me in shock. "This is impossible. You're just a mechanic." "Actually," Agent Hayes said, as she cuffed him, "your brother has been working with us since he discovered irregularities in your law firm's financial records. When he brought evidence of embezzlement to our white-collar crime division, we realized we had an opportunity to investigate a much larger operation." The truth was more complicated than Agent Hayes was letting on, but Ryan didn't need to know all the details. 2 weeks earlier, when I'd tried to expose Ryan's crimes to his law partner, Bradley, I'd made a crucial mistake in trusting the wrong person. But that mistake had led to an unexpected breakthrough. After Bradley had essentially thrown me out of his office, I'd been devastated to learn that Ryan's corruption extended to his business partner. But I'd also been angry enough to take more drastic action. Instead of giving up, I'd decided to contact the State Bar Association to report both lawyers for ethical violations. The woman who'd answered my call at the Bar Association had listened patiently to my story about embezzlement and drug dealing, taking detailed notes and asking pointed questions about the evidence I'd gathered. At the end of our conversation, she'd given me a phone number and told me to call it immediately. "This is beyond our jurisdiction," she'd explained, "but the people at this number will definitely want to hear what you have to say." The phone number had connected me to Agent Patricia Hayes of the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. As it turned out, the Bureau had already been investigating Ryan's law firm based on suspicious financial activity reported by several banks. My evidence of embezzlement and drug dealing had provided the missing pieces they needed to build a comprehensive case. "We've been watching your brother for 6 months," Agent Hayes had told me during our first meeting. "Bank transfers that don't match his reported income, client complaints about missing funds, unusual cash deposits. But we needed someone on the inside to help us gather concrete evidence." That's when she'd offered me the chance to become a confidential informant. In exchange for my cooperation, the FBI would ensure that all charges against me were dropped and that I received protection from any retaliation by Ryan or his associates. The sting operation in the parking garage had been carefully orchestrated to get Ryan to confess on tape. Marcus Webb was actually an undercover FBI agent who'd been building a relationship with Ryan for months, posing as a drug dealer while documenting every transaction. The fake drug buy had been designed to make Ryan believe he was successfully framing me, encouraging him to speak freely about his crimes. "The bag actually does contain cocaine," Agent Hayes had explained during our planning session. "But it's evidence from a previous case, and Marcus will be arresting your brother for attempting to purchase it." As the FBI agents processed the crime scene, I watched my brother being read his rights and loaded into a federal transport vehicle. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his perfect hair disheveled, and his confident demeanor completely shattered. "Wait," he called out as they closed the vehicle door. "I want to make a deal. I can give you bigger fish." But the door slammed shut, cutting off his desperate pleas. Agent Hayes approached me as the scene wound down. "Excellent work, Mr. Patterson. Your brother's confession will be crucial in prosecuting not only him, but several other members of his network. What happens now? Now we execute search warrants on his home, his office, and his bank accounts. We arrest his co-conspirators, including his law partner Bradley, and several of his drug customers. And you get your life back." "What about Sarah? Your ex-girlfriend appears to have been manipulated rather than complicit. She won't face charges, but she'll need to testify about the conversations she had with your brother." As I drove home that night, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that my nightmare was finally ending, but sadness that it had taken such extreme measures to prove my innocence to the people who should have believed me from the beginning. My phone rang as I pulled into my apartment complex. The caller ID showed my parents' number. "Dirk." Mom's voice was shaky and uncertain. "We just saw the news about Ryan's arrest. Is it true what they're saying about embezzlement and drug dealing?" "It's all true, Mom. Everything I tried to tell you was true." There was a long silence before Dad's voice came on the line. "Son, we owe you an enormous apology. We should have believed you. We should have supported you. You chose to believe Ryan because he was successful and I was just a mechanic. That tells me everything I need to know about how you see your sons." "That's not fair," Mom protested. "We love you both equally." "No, you don't. You love the son who made you proud at dinner parties and the son who embarrassed you when he got arrested. There's a difference." "How can we make this right?" Dad asked. "I don't know if you can. 28 years of treating me like the expendable child doesn't get fixed with one phone call." After I hung up, I sat in my car for a long time, processing the events of the past month. My brother was in federal custody, facing decades in prison. My parents were finally beginning to understand the depth of their favoritism and its consequences. My ex-girlfriend would have to live with the knowledge that she'd been manipulated into betraying someone she claimed to love. But I was free. The charges against me would be dropped, my reputation would be restored, and I could begin rebuilding my life without the shadow of false accusations hanging over me. My phone buzzed with a text message from Agent Hayes. "All search warrants executed successfully. Recovered over $2.3 million in stolen client funds, and enough evidence to prosecute 15 co-conspirators. Couldn't have done it without your help." For the first time in weeks, I smiled. 6 months later, I sat in the gallery of Federal District Court, watching my brother receive his sentence. The judge, an elderly man with white hair and serious eyes, had spent the morning reviewing the extensive evidence against Ryan embezzlement of client funds, totaling $2.3 million distribution of cocaine to over 40 customers, conspiracy to frame an innocent person, and obstruction of justice. "Mr. Patterson." The judge said, his voice carrying the weight of decades on the bench, "Your crimes represent a fundamental betrayal of the legal profession and the trust placed in you by clients, colleagues, and family members. Your decision to frame your own brother for crimes you committed yourself is particularly reprehensible." Ryan stood at the defendant's table, wearing an orange jumpsuit, his expensive suits and confident demeanor now just memories. His lawyer had attempted to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence against him was too overwhelming and his crimes too extensive for any meaningful reduction in sentence. "I hereby sentence you to 18 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims of your embezzlement scheme, and you are permanently disbarred from practicing law in any jurisdiction." As the bailiffs led Ryan away in shackles, he turned to look at me one last time. I met his eyes without flinching, feeling no satisfaction in his downfall, but rather a deep sadness for the brother I'd once looked up to, and the family that had been destroyed by his choices. In the hallway outside the courtroom, I was approached by several people who'd become important parts of my story over the past months. Agent Patricia Hayes shook my hand warmly. Thank you again for your cooperation, Mr. Patterson. Without your willingness to work with us, Ryan and his associates might have continued their crimes for years. Detective Sarah Walsh, who'd been instrumental in coordinating between local and federal law enforcement, offered her own thanks. I'm sorry I didn't believe you initially. Your case taught me to look more carefully at family dynamics when evaluating accusations. You were just doing your job, I told her. I probably would have been skeptical too. Bradley Patterson, Ryan's former law partner, approached me hesitantly. He'd pleaded guilty to embezzlement charges and received a reduced sentence of 5 years in exchange for his full cooperation with the FBI investigation. Dirk, I know my apology doesn't mean much, but I want you to know how sorry I am for my part in this. Your brother convinced me that helping him was the only way to save the firm, but I should have known better. You made your choice, Bradley. At least you owned up to it eventually. The most difficult conversation came with my parents, who'd been waiting in the hallway looking older and more fragile than I'd ever seen them. The past 6 months had been devastating for Harold and Susan Patterson, watching their successful lawyer son revealed as a criminal while coming to terms with their treatment of their other son. Can we talk? Mom asked, her eyes red from crying. We found a quiet corner of the courthouse where we could speak privately. Dad struggled to find words while Mom wrung her hands nervously. We've been going to family therapy, she said finally. Dr. Martinez has helped us understand how our favoritism affected both you and Ryan. We enabled his sense of entitlement while making you feel like you had to prove your worth constantly. Ryan didn't become a criminal because you loved him more, I said. He became a criminal because he chose to, but your favoritism did make it easier for him to manipulate all of us. Dad cleared his throat. We want to make amends, son. We know we can't undo 28 years of mistakes, but we'd like to try to build a better relationship if you're willing. What does that look like? Equal treatment, Mom said. Equal respect for your accomplishments, equal support when you face challenges, equal love, regardless of your career or income level. And if I choose to remain a mechanic instead of becoming something more impressive for dinner party conversations, then we'll be proud of you for being an honest, hard-working man who stands up for what's right, Dad said. I looked at my parents, these two people who'd brought me into the world and shaped my early years in ways both positive and negative. The hurt they'd caused couldn't be erased, but perhaps it could be healed over time, with genuine effort from all of us. I'm willing to try, I said. But things will be different. I'm not going to accept being treated as the expendable child anymore. We understand, Mom said. We want to earn back your trust. 3 months after Ryan's sentencing, I received an unexpected visitor at the auto repair shop, where I'd been rehired with a raise and a promotion to shop foreman. Sarah appeared in the garage bay where I was working on a transmission, looking nervous but determined. I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, she said, but I needed to try to explain why I believed Ryan's lies about you. I wiped my hands on a shop rag and leaned against the workbench. You don't owe me any explanations, Sarah. What's done is done. But I do owe you an explanation. I was a nurse who'd seen the damage that drug addiction could cause, and when someone I trusted told me you were using cocaine, I let my professional experience override my personal knowledge of who you were as a person. Ryan was very convincing. That's no excuse. I should have believed in you instead of believing in him. I should have trusted the 3 years we spent together instead of trusting his manipulation. I studied her face, seeing genuine remorse and regret. Why are you here, Sarah? Because I want you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. Not just romantically, but as a friend and partner. You were the most honest, loyal person I'd ever known, and I threw that away because I was scared and confused. Are you asking for another chance? I'm asking for your forgiveness, whether or not that includes another chance. I need to know that you don't hate me for abandoning you when you needed support the most. I considered her request carefully. Sarah had hurt me deeply by choosing to believe Ryan over me, but she'd also been a victim of his manipulation. Unlike my parents, who'd shown favoritism for years, Sarah had made her decision based on false information provided by someone she had no reason to distrust. "I forgive you," I said. "But I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago. Being betrayed by my family and losing everything I cared about changed me. I'm stronger now, but I'm also more careful about who I trust." "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm proud of how you fought for the truth, even when everyone else had given up on you. You showed incredible courage and integrity." After Sarah left, I returned to my work with a sense of closure I hadn't expected. Her apology couldn't undo the pain she'd caused, but it helped me let go of the anger I'd been carrying. That evening, I attended a support group meeting for people who'd been wrongfully accused of crimes. Agent Hayes had connected me with the group, suggesting that my experience might help others facing similar situations. The group met weekly in the basement of a community center, bringing together people whose lives had been disrupted by false accusations, frame-ups, and miscarriages of justice. My name is Dirk, and 6 months ago my brother framed me for drug dealing to cover up his own crimes. I told the circle of 8 people. I lost my job, my girlfriend, and my family's trust. But I also learned that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones we love the most. And sometimes fighting for the truth means standing alone against everyone you care about. After the meeting, a young woman named Amy approached me. She'd been falsely accused of embezzlement by a coworker who was actually stealing from their company. "How did you find the strength to keep fighting when everyone thought you were guilty?" she asked. I realized that my integrity was the only thing nobody could take away from me. Ryan could plant drugs in my car, my parents could choose to believe his lies, and Sarah could abandon me based on false evidence. But they couldn't make me actually be guilty. The truth was still the truth, regardless of who believed it. But weren't you tempted to just give up and accept whatever plea deal they offered? Every day. But I knew that if I pleaded guilty to something I didn't do, I'd be betraying the person I was raised to be. My parents may have failed me, but they did teach me the difference between right and wrong. Admitting to crimes I didn't commit would have been wrong, even if it was easier. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the long journey from that terrifying night when police had stormed into my apartment to this moment of hard-won peace. Ryan was in prison where he belonged, paying for his crimes and hopefully learning to take responsibility for his choices. My parents were working to change patterns of behavior that had damaged our family for decades. Sarah was dealing with the consequences of her decision to trust the wrong person, and I was rebuilding my life on a foundation of truth and self-respect that nobody could ever take away from me again. The phone rang as I unlocked my apartment door. Detective Walsh's name appeared on the caller ID. "Dirk, I wanted to let you know that we just arrested the last member of Ryan's drug network, a doctor in Riverside who'd been buying cocaine for his private practice parties. That's 15 total arrests stemming from your brother's operation." "How many people do you think he would have hurt if this had continued?" "Dozens. Maybe hundreds. He was expanding his operation every month, recruiting new customers and stealing more money to fund larger purchases. You stopped a criminal enterprise that could have destroyed countless lives." After we hung up, I made myself dinner and sat down to watch the evening news. The lead story was about corporate fraud conviction, but I turned off the television before the report could remind me of everything I'd been through. Instead, I opened a letter that had arrived in the mail that afternoon. It was from the State Bar Association, informing me that they were presenting me with a citizenship award for my role in exposing corruption within the legal profession. The ceremony would be held next month, and I was invited to bring guests to celebrate the recognition. I thought about who I might invite. My parents, who were slowly earning back the right to be part of my life. Detective Walsh, who'd become an unexpected friend. Agent Hayes, who'd given me the chance to turn my pain into purpose. Maybe even Sarah, if I decided that forgiveness could evolve into friendship over time. But mostly I thought about the person I'd become through this ordeal. 6 months ago, I'd been someone who accepted his place as the expendable child, who believed that keeping peace was more important than demanding respect. Now I was someone who understood that integrity wasn't just about being honest. It was about fighting for honesty, even when that fight cost everything you valued. The greatest victory wasn't Ryan's imprisonment or the vindication of my innocence. The greatest victory was learning that I was strong enough to stand alone for what was right and wise enough to recognize the people who deserved to stand with me. Blood may make you family, but loyalty and truth make you worthy of that bond. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from standing alone for what's right, even when those closest to you have chosen wrong. Justice delayed isn't justice denied. It's justice prepared. And sometimes when you fight hard enough for the truth, you discover that you're stronger than you ever knew possible. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where your own family didn't believe you when you were telling the truth? How did you handle being betrayed by the people who were supposed to support you unconditionally? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experience might help someone else who's going through a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to let me know. And if you want to hear more stories about family betrayal, justice, and redemption, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Finally, if you know someone who might benefit from hearing this story, someone who's been falsely accused, someone dealing with family betrayal, or someone who just needs to remember that the truth is worth fighting for, please share this video with them. Sometimes knowing that others have survived similar betrayals can give us the strength to keep fighting for justice. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, your integrity is the one thing nobody can ever take away from you, no matter how hard they try. Stay strong, stay honest, and never stop fighting for what's right.